Good morning, comic book world. It is your good friend, Mr. Eric Norton. I'm here with my good friends, Jack DeMaio. Check him out there, Mr. AKA Bolo down there doing his thing. And we have AJ and Matt from Instagrailz. Going to give you a nice little preview of GrailzCons today. But before we get started, I want to lay out for my friend Jack. Jack, how are you doing, sir?
Man, I'm doing really well. I'm excited about this week's episode because I've been pumped for this GrailzCon for a while. I've been seeing this whole lineup, so many great live sellers, huge creators. You yourself, Eric Dizzle, is going to make that appearance. So I'm pumped for this. Actually,
we had to call an audible. I have an arrangement that I can't get out of next Friday, but I did Matt and AJ a solid. I think I sent them Mr. Borak, the head grader and president of CBCS. Well, that's a pretty good trade-off, right, guys?
You know, I would say it's an upgrade, but you yourself, you're up there. So, I mean, it's I'd say.
Nice. Hey, AJ, Matt, please introduce yourself just for those who might not, because you guys do everything on Instagram, which is awesome. But just so the audience here can get to know a little bit about yourselves, we'll start with you, AJ. Tell us a little bit about who you are and a little bit about Instagrailz.
Yeah, man. So AJ from Instagrailz, co-founder, my partner Matt and I, we met the end of last year. Actually, I bought a comic book from Matt. We had a crazy idea to start a page. We kind of knew there was a need in the the Instagram world, and we just went for it. And we've both been collecting our whole lives, and we're just all about the comic community. So we figured if we could put our heads together, and we have a lot of crazy ideas. So we're having a ton of fun with it. But yeah, just super excited for our partnerships with all the different pages and getting to meet all these artists, work with you guys at CBCS. So we're super grateful, super excited, man.
All right, Matt, tell us the real story.
All right, so it all started back in 1983. It was a stormy night in Boston, Massachusetts. No,
very nice.
So I growing up, like AJ said, we're collectors and we've been in comics our whole life. So I can remember, being maybe 5 or 6 in the basement of my house, and there was a huge oversized copy of Action Comics #1. I don't know if it's those reprints that are really big, and it was like picture Superman when he's a baby, and I don't know if this is canon anymore. That whole story, he's jumping buildings, and they show how a flea jumps as to show how his powers work, and I remember this vividly. So, that's how far back it goes for me. And then I remember, my first Spider-Man comic, I still have it actually. It was Amazing Spider-Man 313, I think. Todd Harlan with the lizard. And one of the first ones I remember having in my house with the cover off. And I think it's in a long box. So that's how far back it goes. And it always continued. I think, when I got to high school, maybe let up a little bit. And then I served in the military and the Marines for 4 years. When I came back, I found all my long boxes. So this is 2008 or so, and I slowly got back into it. And then more, over time, found eBay, started selling some books to buy some other books, and it snowballed. And so fast forward to like AJ was saying, for whatever reason, the market was picking up, trying to get rid of some books or something, and selling on eBay and some other services. And we came across, our paths crossed. I think AJ was trying to haggle me down on books. I was staying pretty solid. One was Iron Man 55, right? And it was 9.2. And I couldn't believe, because the Avengers had kind of died down. And it's the first Thanos, and it's a beautiful, I can't believe, the book, what the price, the asking price was for. I'm like, wow, I missed my window on this one. And that's a whole other story, the hype these movies cause. But anyway, so I ended up selling AJ a spot-laying Ant-Man appearance, 9.4, I think. And when AJ would haggle me, and I get the 10, I'd be like, oh hey, it's this guy, yeah. And so, but through that though, we had discussions about the kind of state of comic book selling and the market, and what books we had, and got really into that. And one of the things I think we kind of both related to was some of the services out there, and Instagram is kind of still fairly new, and it was new to me, and I discovered that. I'm like, oh, this is cool. It's a way to do this aside from eBay and Facebook and whatever, which those are okay. But I was like, there's still some things that weren't too great. And there, some of it was the communication. I didn't really know who I was dealing with a lot of the time. Some kind of services they were offering were contracted to people who I couldn't talk to, and this is various places too. It's not just one place. And so who am I dealing with? That sort of thing. I'm like, this could be improved upon. Me and AJ started talking, and AJ has a personality where it's like, it's kind of very ambitious, which is great for this site. And we both have ideas. We throw ideas at each other. It's a really good collaboration, I feel like. And through that, one day AJ was like, I think it was this kind of conversation. It was like, hey, let's start our own site, right? And AJ, you can correct me. And I'm like, well, and I'm like, I'm like, hey, I don't know. I'm home on leave with my newborn.
Yeah, Matt's got 3 kids. I have 2 kids. We're both super busy.
So I'm like, let's wait a few months or something. And then one day she's like, yeah, I made a site. And I'm like, all right.
Yeah, so I was like, I made the page, dude. I'll send you the login. And Matt was kind of skeptical at first, and then we started listing some stuff, a lot of our own stuff to start before the consignment picked up. And we sold Matt's Walking Dead, I think it was a $3,500 sale, like a few weeks in. And we're like, okay, there's something here, something special is happening. And we've connected with just a ton of great people, buyers and sellers. Our buyers become sellers, our sellers become buyers, people have become friends. We're in the DMs personally talking to everybody about spec books, about pricing, about comps. We're in the thick of it. I went back about, 25 years collecting, and, my first book was Thunderbolts 1. I bought it off the newsstand, and it's one of the reasons I'm so stoked to have Bagley, and we'll talk about GrailzCon in a few minutes. But just to get, so immersed into this at a young age. And then I ended up selling my collection. I'm from Baltimore originally. I sold my collection, the bulk of it, about 10 years ago. And then during COVID, like everybody else, I just dove headfirst back in, and it's been just off to the races. And it's just, it's just, we just love it. I mean, there's a passion there that, we get excited when people send us pictures of the books, and we get pumped up helping people sell their books and selling our own books. And just, there's just a love for the hobby. And I think that's the reason people have kind of, honed in on Instagrailz as like a new niche spot on Instagram. So I think that's, it's a little bit about the page, man.
Awesome. Guys, I want to say what's up to everybody in the comment section. Jack, I have a question for you. Just a moment. Joker just popped in. What's up, Joker? Go check him out. He does great shows, East Meets West Comics. Joker is I love Joker's insight and input on the CBCS Hot List review. He's not on there every week, but the weeks that he is on, they're great to watch. He has a lot of great insight, and he's definitely down with the comic book community. I love him. Go check him out. Check his channel out. He does a lot of great stuff over there. Jack, I got to ask you, man. When we first mentioned having some guests on the show, I said I wanted to have Instagrailz on first, and you were all about that. That was great. I'm glad that you were on board there. But I got to ask you, because you have your finger on the pulse of the on this side of the hobby, and you're watching these guys. When you see a page come around on Instagram specifically with Instagrailz, what are your initial thoughts? And like after you watch it a while, are you impressed by what they're doing? Because I certainly was, coming from a sports card side of things.
Yeah. So first off, I'm a big believer in the consignment business. I think that it's something that gets lost in the entire process. Is everybody enjoys the process of buying. The process of selling becomes work, and not everybody enjoys it. Not everybody can maximize their ability to do that and make the most money. And on top of the fact that a good consigner can help you maximize your ROI for a book, some people are just willing to take a little less in order to take that burden off of themselves. Within other markets, we've seen that. And I think really, AJ hit the nail on the head when you're talking about the need for transparency between who you're buying from. And what you're able to do with a page like Instagrailz is you're able to establish yourself in the market. And you're right, it really didn't take much for these guys to get themselves into a position where they're known. And that's another thing where I mentioned in the opening about the partnerships. when you start to see some of the names attached to some of the things that they're doing, it really also lends credibility to the efforts that they're making, which I think again is going to continue to give buyers comfort knowing that they can shop with these guys, and that they're going to, especially when you're talking about the prices on the books in the market today, you want to feel that security. And then sellers, they can feel like this is an avenue where they're only growing. The more people that are exposed to them and the more people that get familiarized with the page, the more these books are going to continue to go up and up and up as that customer base comes in. So I think they've made an immediate impact, and there's a professionalism to the way they're doing things, which I think allows them to stand out from, say, somebody just kind of running an Instagram page. I think almost sometimes that a social media page, it almost comes off as, say, like less in the outset, less professional than it can be. And what these guys are doing is really elevating that and doing something special with it.
That's awesome. I'm glad that you said all that thing. I know that Matt and AJ both would like to thank you for your kind words, but we can't do that because we're running out of time with you guys. I know that you got kids that you got to go take care of, and I told you I didn't want to keep you any more than 15 or 20 minutes. So that's going to lead us up to the preview of GrailzCon that's coming up next Friday, and I'm excited for this. Again, I was supposed to be a part of it. I wanted to. I just have an engagement that I can't get out of. I hope that Steve fills in nicely for me, but this is a really cool thing that you guys came up with. The virtual con is not new, but you guys are trying to put your own twist in it. Tell us, Matt, I guess we'll start with you. Matt, tell us a little bit about GrailzCon and what we can look forward to.
Well, so it's a combination of things, and you're right, it's not new, but like everything else we've been doing, we're just trying to kind of improve on it and build on it and put our own little twist on it. It started off a little bit smaller, and then it just grew in scale through, we were able to get some great names. We're going to have books at really aggressively priced for, buyers out there. We'll incorporate, the community of sellers we have. And on top of all that, we have some great live sales lined up with some people really well-known and respected in the community. So we're trying to get other people in on it, make it like a, kind of community event, which I think is really cool. And then to top all that off, Mark Bagley, we're going to have you, Dizzle, but now we got Steve, John Romita Jr., it's like unbelievable. So hopefully it's a really cool thing. I got all the John Romita books lined up that, I'm going to put some up behind me for when I interview with him. And yeah, so hopefully it's just a really cool event. We could get people some books and get some cool info out there. And on top of that too, I'll let AJ kind of, add some stuff in too, but we're going to kind of, have some other stuff too, maybe with, like with Hero restoration, get some information from pressing out there. So, a lot of different aspects and avenues to the hobby, and, for collectors to just kind of hang out and see some good stuff and buy some books. I think it'll be a great experience, great time.
I think it's going to be a good time. AJ, go ahead and add on top of that, buddy.
Yeah, so we also have 2 charity auctions that we're going to be running. One, we partner with David Sanchez, and I'll be interviewing him actually right after Steve next Friday, which is going to be really, really awesome. But we have a couple signed books, one that David was kind enough to donate and sign that's going to be benefiting the Lyme's disease awareness organization. And then we have a book signed by Ray Porter and Zach Snyder. That's going to be benefiting the Suicide Prevention Association. So, and 100% of the proceeds are going to be donated. So we're really excited. We'll be refreshing those listings every single day of the event. And yeah, I think what's going to be interesting too is, we have the individual interviews, myself with Mark Bagley, Matt with John Romita Jr. We have Professor Pecora, who a lot of people don't know yet. We're kind of bringing him to the table. He's just a wealth of comic book knowledge. And then our partners, for the claim sales, Nerdy Girl Comics, Skeleton Key Comics, Dave and Adams, just a massive store, Rage Theo, Exolutionary. We have all these great pages of these, just sellers that are very respected in the community. So we're honored to have them as partners. We'll have Big Book Friday as well, a week from this Friday. So that'll be capping off GrailzCon. And like Matt said, you know, it really is still all about the books. So the, you know, as people are logging on and hopping on the page throughout the 4 days of GrailzCon, they're just going to be blown away with some of the prices of the books that we're putting out there. And the content's going to be great. You know, we've put a lot of time and effort into the interviews that we'll be doing with the artists, just because there is such a passion there, and you know, there's just so many things we want to ask. We're hoping we can cram it into the 20 minutes that we get with these guys. So it's super exciting, man.
Wanted to mention too, you know, one of our other partners, Speedy Comics, who's kind of, you know, one of our bigger partners, they have an awesome, you know, another part is an awesome roundtable discussion, industry discussion they're having. Yeah, so like, you know, just a bunch of good stuff we're going to try to offer to the community.
So I'm interested actually in that roundtable, just specifically because of Speedy Comics coming from Saudi Arabia. I want to know about what comic collecting is like over there, and I'm really going to be interested in tuning in to maybe catching that out on a replay or something, because I just absolutely want to know more about that. Guys, I told you that I would keep you about 15, 20 minutes. That means we're at that mark right now. I've posted your link I've posted the link to Instagrailz in the comment section so that our viewers and listeners can go find you. Any other social media that we need to know about before we say good afternoon to you?
We're exclusively on Instagrailz on IG. We keep it, you know, very simple. We had a Facebook page, but we've put all the focus into Instagram. We think that's, you know, really the spot that we can build upon. So thank you guys for having us, man. This has really been a pleasure. Hope to see as many of you guys as we can during you know, GrailzCon starts on June 1st.
Yeah,
awesome.
Thanks, guys. Awesome.
Thanks, guys. We'll say good evening to them or good afternoon. Go check them out at Instagrailz on Instagram. Have a lot of fun with them. Make sure you catch GrailzCon next week. You don't want to miss any of that information. Hey, Joker jumps back in. He says, "Where is this taking place?" Joker, it's all on Instagram. So go follow them at Instagrailz on Instagram. Matt, AJ, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. See you.
All right. As they hop off, Bolo, I have a question for you, sir, because we have a question in the comment section that I don't know. I mean, your insight here will be better. Retro wants to know, what's more desirable by comic collectors, graded unsigned comics or graded signed comics on key issues?
So this is kind of like a kind of an age-old debate, right? Because it almost depends on who you ask. Now, traditionally, graded signed comics are gonna bring a premium. Mm-hmm. That's kind of a given. But there are some people, when we're talking about like Silver Age classics, who almost look at it like sacrilege to take these grails and to have someone write on them. And it just kind of depends upon the view. It's the equivalent for like the Beckett community of like, you know, a 56 mantle getting, you know, signed. That's not necessarily the use of that card that you would have wanted. So it's the same thing, but at the same point, you're still going to command insane prices on the market for that. And that's also one of the beauties of CBCS and the verified signature program, that a lot of these books that are out there that have been signed, that are raw, can be turned into nice slabbed signature books.
Well, that leads me to my next question then, because obviously it's always about opinion and preference, right? Mm-hmm. So Trevor, who's been down with Beckett Live and Fat Packs and Beckett Radio for the longest time, he's catching CBCS Live today for the first time. He wants to know, should he get his Howard the Duck episode 1 graded? Is there any kind of movement on the Howard the Duck?
So here's here's my thing about Howard the Duck. There's a lot out on the surface of Howard the Duck. You would say it's a silly character and there's no opportunity there, because, you know, they had a movie in the 80s and it wasn't popular. And then he kind of appeared in the MCU already. But here's the thing. Every time Howard the Duck shows up, even a little bit, even that one screenshot in Endgame where you can see Howard the Duck showed up for that final battle, his books spike. This is a cult popular character. I think absolutely Howard the Duck is one of those characters as the comic market continues to climb, even if Howard doesn't ever show back up on the big screen. I think this is kind of like a timeless character and a piece of history because it was one of Marvel's like earliest ever forays into film. So I think as the MCU gets more and more synonymous with pop culture, that's going to be a piece of history.
Absolutely. Hey guys, we got a giveaway that I have to mention, and thank you also, Jack, for your insight there. Great Howard the Duck, as Joker says, with CBCS, because we're the clear choice, right? So we have a giveaway today that I did not mention at the top. We've got about 20 minutes left here in the show. So just get your comments in. Tell us, just react to the show. We're going to pick a random commenter, and we're going to give them a copy of Mighty Thor 700. It's a 9/8. It's a virgin cover with War Thor and Hulk on it and Hela. What do you know about this issue, Jack?
Yeah, I believe that's a virgin cover. I believe that was a store exclusive.
Okay.
But 700, that was the end of the Jason Aaron run, right before we were about to get the Donny Cates takeover. So this whole era of Thor, Mighty Thor, you're talking about Jane Foster, who we're going to get with Thor Love and Thunder. That is a key time in the Thor mythos. I think really Thor is one of those characters where some of the modern comics are going to become more iconic than some of the classic Thor stories down the road, because we've seen this character really elevate through popularity in the MCU.
So what you mentioned, Donny Cates, man, like what was it, like second or third book in, he makes Thor a herald of Galactus, and all of a sudden he's destroying the DCU and everything else. Donny Cates, man, he is. I know that he's the talk of the comic world. He has been for probably about a year or so when it comes to the books that he's associated with. I love everything that man touches. I don't think he's done any wrong yet. Do you?
No, he doesn't. And he's also one of those people that you want to root for. My first ever videotaped interview was with Donny Cates before he had signed with Marvel. Actually, it was about 2 weeks before he signed with Marvel, and I'm pretty sure he straight up lied in that interview telling me he wasn't going to sign with anyone. But either way, he's a guy you root for, because I always tell people, like, he's not, people think like, oh, he pumps books or he gets things hot for the market. But here's the thing about Donny Cates. He is the type of comic book collector or comic book fan who would have rolled up a comic book and put it in their back pocket.
Yeah.
He's not the collector type. He does this for the love. He loves these stories. He's passionate about it. And the guy's crazy. He'll take it anywhere. I'm excited to see where he and Ryan Stegman, they're working on some big secret Marvel book. I think it's Hulk. I would bank on it being Hulk. But we're going to see him dropping some new Marvel series soon. And I imagine it's going to be the talk of the market.
With Donny, he does get in trouble from time to time for some of the things that he writes. And I mean, he blew up a planet of puppies, if you don't remember. So it's a lot of fun. We have stuff we got to talk about, but we got great questions coming in. To follow up on the autograph question earlier that we were talking about, Retro wants to know, what do comic collectors think about getting a TV star or a movie star to sign a comic book that they may not have been associated with the writing or the book, but they play that character on screen?
So it's a newer market, and it's one that, say, the diehard comic collector may have less of an interest in, but the overall comic fan and the pop culture fan has a huge interest in. These signatures can command an incredible premium depending upon who they are and how tough they are to get. And this is, again, why I think the CBCS verified signature program is essential, because if you happen to meet, say, a Chris Hemsworth somewhere and you can get that Thor book signed and get that certified, that is huge money. And even voice actors command a premium on the market, from Disney to stuff like the Batman animated series, X-Men Adventures, and the old X-Men Fox cartoon. So all of that stuff, I think that is a growing market, and we're starting to see private signings. And I think the pandemic almost helped that market, because more celebrities who wouldn't have signed, especially the A-list celebrities who are doing like Star Wars shows and things like that, wouldn't have traditionally done private signings to sign comic books. But everybody being home and bringing these signings virtual, we're seeing that more and more.
There's a company out there called In-Home Con, and it ran by Aaron Mahnke, and he's I think I got that name wrong. I'm sorry. I'll check that myself. But he does he does these big virtual signings that are just amazing. And I remember seeing it the first time going, oh, that's kind of cool. And then he had the cast of the Peanuts, and like it just blew up. I was like that's something you're hitting guys our age right in the heart with the Peanuts, right? Everybody loves, the Charlie Brown stuff. So, and then, like those things have just blown up. And then you mentioned, other celebrities that would do it, that are doing these private signings that wouldn't otherwise do it, like Star Wars Autograph Universe. Just they've announced Rosario Dawson, they've announced Idris Elba, Chris Hemsworth, Tom Hiddleston. It goes on and on and on. I think that's an area in the market. Being connected to Beckett with Beckett Authentication Services, it's a market that we see exploding, and I'm glad that you're seeing the same thing, Jack.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're just beginning to see it. It's a new market.
Absolutely. So, speaking of new in pop culture and Marvel and exciting, the Eternals trailer dropped this week. The teaser trailer. I wrote an article about some Eternals books that you should be picking, but they're all older books. They're all the Jack Kirby books.
Yep.
And there was a question that was asked on that article when I wrote it. What about the newer Eternals books? I covered the Jack Kirby books. Bolo, is there any of the newer books that are going to make waves here as the release approaches?
I think that the second series Eternals, there's some variants. We just talked about John Romita Jr. John Romita Jr. did some variant covers, and you get kind of like the first, say, modern day Circe variant, and they were not popular. This was a kind of like a unsuccessful series. Really, the Eternals were never successful. They were never a popular team. Really, you're only talking about 2 volumes over like a 50-year history, and neither volume really went long. But this is why I'm actually excited about the Eternals, because where Marvel had extreme success with Guardians of the Galaxy is the fact that there wasn't already a fan base attached to this long comic lore. They could kind of get liberal with their storytelling and didn't have to be so attached to the comic books. They're going to be able to do that with Eternals. They're going to be able to take this team that Jack Kirby created, the legend Jack Kirby, and then really just kind of expound on it and take it in whatever direction is going to fit the MCU. So I think that the modern day books probably don't provide the same value as those classics that you highlighted in your article. But I would also be paying attention, very close attention, to the current Eternals run. Because I really wonder if the Eternals is going to be a long-standing franchise for Marvel. They're going to need to draw inspiration from somewhere.
Yeah.
As we just mentioned, since there isn't this deep history with Eternals that some of these other characters have, I think some of the more recent Eternal stuff could be in play. Also, some of the characters were slightly changed, and the current series that's out right now, which honestly has very little fanfare. I think people were turned off by the fact that Marvel had like 100 variants for issue 1. But I really think that series is going to be something to pay attention to. And then the comment right there from Hard Knocks about Kit Harington and Black Knight. Yeah. That is something to really pay attention to, because I think he's going to get overlooked a little bit going into the movie. But I think coming out of the movie, that may be the strongest character. And because of that, similarly, I'd say Circe, of all of the, if you were looking at the Eternal books for maybe the most opportunity, I really like Circe and Eternals 3, because Circe is the love interest of the Black Knight. And they both end up in the comics, at least, as Avengers members at some point. So I imagine they will have a longer run than maybe some of the other characters.
How ironic is it that Kit Harington has a love interest named Circe in this, this run? A little Game of Thrones inside for you there. Hey, man, you posted something that I wanted to talk to you about, and I see the Boom Studios behind you, and it had a big finger over the mouth. It's a hush-hush kind of thing. What can you tell us about this news that you were alluding to? If you don't, obviously, I don't want you to break it if you can't say anything. Yeah. But like, Boom Studios is doing big things. So what's up right now?
Boom Studios is doing big things. And one of the things I like about Boom Studios is that they are constantly in the forefront of getting their stories and their products into the hands of collectors. So Boom has started to kind of like put some teasers out about an upcoming announcement. It looks like it's going to happen within the next week. And this announcement, I think a lot of people are looking like for is it going to be an option announcement? Is it going to be this? My experience with Boom Studios is this isn't the way, like option announcements, you don't get teasers. I think this is going to be something collector based, something on the publishing side. And it's a reason why I really wanted to highlight this for people to see. I can't talk about specifically, as you mentioned, what it is. I need to let Boom do that how they would naturally do that. But I think it's something that collectors are going to be excited about and should really be kind of paying attention to. And we should, like I said, we should see that in the next week. So I imagine by the next time we're here, it'll be something that we will definitely be talking about.
So tell me though, like, is this something that we need to break in the middle of the next? And if it happens next week, is this something that we need to break in on and maybe do a show about? Because I'm completely open to that. If that,
quite possibly. Certainly, I'm certainly open to it as well. It's definitely going to be something that I think is going to make waves in the collector community.
How do waves get made in the collector community? And I'm asking you this from a novice standpoint because everything to me, it seems like, if it's option related or a movie or film related, there's noise. That's when collectors start paying attention. And I don't, just again from the novice looking from the outside in, comic book news, like actual comic book news, seems to get overshadowed sometimes, and I don't think that's right.
Yeah, so there's like three different kind of like pillars of things that can cause spikes. And you're right, the one that is everyone's focus is the Hollywood news. That's what we always talk about. But there's two other things. There's publishing initiatives, which is when, say, a company goes direct to consumer through avenues or starts live stream programming, things like that. That kind of stuff where it's meant to kind of give customers an extra level of engagement or an extra product. Or there's also publishing initiatives more from the creative side. So comic book news, as you would say, like, new series coming or this creator signed. And I totally agree. I remember when Boom announced the signing of Tom Taylor and Al Ewing, like all at once. And you were taking, here's the writer of Immortal Hulk, and here's the writer of Deceased. And you were taking like one of the bigger names for DC and one of the bigger names for Marvel, and they were coming to Boom. And I think that should have been as big a news as anything that you're getting in Hollywood. Because the last year has proven that you're going to get amazing stories from these guys that are probably going to end up on Netflix at some point with that first look deal with Boom. So I think that really those are the three pillars, really, like comic book news, which is definitely the slowest of the three, publishing initiatives, which can get collectors excited about different things like Skybound and their Comics Vault Live, things like that, that can get collectors excited. I know Scout has like a Scout Metal program where they sell like limited edition number 100 books. And then there's like that big movie news that you tend to see from the major news outlets.
Okay, I got you. I mean, thank you for breaking that down for me, because again, it just didn't seem, in the card world, cards make news. There's rarely movies, or that film kind of aspirations with cards. So cards make news, and I just didn't quite understand why, in a hobby that's supposed to be focused on books, why there wasn't more news being presented in a bigger way. But I mean, you broke it down nicely, so that makes sense.
The Last Dance, I'll say, that's the closest I saw the card market get a taste of what the comic market goes through with it, the kind of like the movie hype, and then everybody's kind of waited for that next Last Dance. Yeah.
So with that being said, in the last couple of weeks, ESPN announced that they're going to do a series on Derek Jeter. That's going to be a 6-part thing on Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter's already crazy hot, so it doesn't. I don't think there's going to be a lot of movement there, but there might be. It happens. And then there was one other one about the Lakers that was announced, and I can see it's going to be really hard for the market to bump up on Kobe Bryant again. But this might happen. That might happen with the Lakers.
I'm actually glad though that you mentioned the Lakers there, because the Lakers also are having an HBO Max live action scripted television show starring like Jason Segel is in it, and several other major actors. That's about the Showtime Lakers. And that is a first that I have ever seen in the sports world, where you're getting it's a book about the Showtime Lakers got optioned and is about to be an HBO Max show. And so I wonder about some of, like with The Last Dance, one thing that was interesting is while Jordan, Jordan exploded and got a lot of attention, all of the kind of auxiliary pieces also exploded. Steve Kerr drew big numbers. So you started to see, Dennis Rodman and Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant. So I think you could see the same thing. I wonder with the Jeter documentary, will it shine a light on Gerald Williams or Tino Martinez or some of the other players? The Lakers live action being a totally different thing. I think there's unlimited. It gets, as a comic book guy, that gets me excited to say, because that's one of those things that could start getting people's wives and girlfriends who don't really care about basketball interested.
Absolutely. You mentioned Steve Kerr, and I'll make this point and we'll move on to the last topic of the show. Steve Kerr's rookie card was 50 cents before that episode about him came out. The next day it was $15. That's an incredible.
And that's that comic book effect. Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what it is. And I think that's the sports card market. I think that there's room for that.
Yeah, absolutely. That Steve Kerr, to that point, Steve Kerr is a Hall of Fame basketball. He's going to go to the Hall of Fame because he's got the rings. He's got the coaching career. He might not go as a player, but he'll go as a coach.
Yeah, I think he's all-time 3-point percentage.
Yeah, he's still the all-time 3-point percentage leader. Sorry, Ray Allen. But if you can pick that card up for 50 cents, you're doing it all day just because it's easy. And then the next day it's 15. Oh wow! I slept on this. I shouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
Hey man, I want to end the show on Star Wars, just because we hit that 44-year anniversary of Star Wars coming out earlier this week. It was on Tuesday. If you guys missed it. Star Wars does have, there's a lot of the Star Wars lexicon that exists outside of those films, and comic books plays a major role in those. I know that there's been a hot streak for Star Wars comics of late, but just give me some insight as to what is driving that hot streak for Star Wars comics, and is it still hot? Is it cooling off? What can we know?
It's still red hot now. It's funny because there's videos that I've done on YouTube only maybe 18 months ago where I was talking about how I thought Star Wars had so much room to grow because it was cold at the time. So it's amazing that in 18 months or so where we've gone from a kind of overlooked segment of the market to just probably the strongest area of the market overall. The thing that makes it strong is the publishing is doing well. All the new series are popular. Bounty Hunters and the Kylo Ren series did well, and the Dr. Aphra series does well. Vader does well. All of that, and then on top of all of that, you have specifically the Dark Horse Comics run. All of the Knights of the Republic stuff. That's where you're getting all of these characters that we're going to get into with Ahsoka Tano and Thrawn and everybody else going forward. That's where you're seeing these obscene prices for these back issues. And I think it's especially kind of again, to tie in the cards thing. One of the things that's really interesting is the difference between the way the card market and the comic market goes, because the comic market is so heavy speculation. So everybody's trying to get ahead of the movies. So the books that are popping right now, on top of the obvious ones, the ones that have showed up, the most are the ones that characters that haven't appeared, that people are excited about, Darth Nihilus and General Thrawn, and these are the ones that people are jumping into. On the card side, people are looking for the classics. They're looking for Vader and they're looking for Luke. Where the interesting thing is, the first appearances of Luke is tough. He's number one, but the first appearance of Han in issue 2, or the first appearance of Yoda in issue 41, those are largely overlooked in comparison to these more modern first appearances. So I think that if you're a card collector, a card investor, there's a lot of room to grow looking for some of these modern characters because their cards are out there in the last few years. And I think if you're a comic buyer, it's tough because this market has exploded. But the thing about it is there's so much room, and I think the amount of Star Wars content we're going to get on Disney Plus is going to be absolutely staggering. So I think there's so much room for Star Wars to just kind of continue to grow and develop. So I don't think you've lost it. I think it's important to remember, I think a rule that we've started to learn in the last couple of years, though, is if a character starts in the comics, that's a good character to invest in. If the character starts in the movies, it doesn't seem like the comic market ever jumps on board, because there's some characters I like Poe Dameron or Captain Phasma is a character I think has a lot of potential. These first appearances are dirt cheap. You can get in on Rey. You can get in on Poe Dameron. You can get in on Captain Phasma for just a few dollars. And so that's interesting because I would argue that they're generally more well known than some of these characters I've highlighted earlier from the Dark Horse run.
Right, absolutely. So that actually is going to shoot down Retro's comment here. He needs a Jar Jar Binks book from Star Wars.
They have Jar Jar Binks comics because right around that whole saga, the whole Clone Wars stuff, there was Jar Jar Binks featured. I think you could see him return again.
Awesome. So Retro, maybe that will make you a little happy as you can go seek those out. All right, we got to give away this comic. I'm going to give it to Hard Knocks just because he said he wanted it. He was the first one to say that he wanted it. So Hard Knocks, please email me, ericn@beckett.com. I'll put that in the comment section right here. You are the new proud owner of Thor 700. All right, ericn@beckett.com. Let me know your shipping address. I will get that out to you. All right, man. As we wrap up the show here, anything that we didn't touch base on that you wanna mention? Because last time we were on, you dropped that beautiful bitter. Was it bittersweet? No, it wasn't bittersweet. Was it bitter root nugget on us? So what would we go out on now?
This one, I will say, I would pay attention to Kraven the Hunter. This Aaron Taylor Johnson announcement. Craven's first appearance is Amazing Spider-Man 15. That book is a Silver Age classic. A 0.5 from CBCS. A 0.5 just sold for over $500.
Wow.
So under a 1. So that tells you somebody made the clear choice with that book. But boy, and it was presentable. But that is going to be a tough book for most collectors and investors. I would pay attention to that Kraven's Hunt crossover run that went across Web of Spider-Man, Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man. I would pay attention to that run. I think that is going to be the go-to collectible and investment for this movie. Most likely that'll be the storyline that will be featured. But either way, that is the kind of like the modern grail for Kraven. That's where I would look.
Okay, guys, make sure you go check that out. Then Bolo obviously knows what he's talking about. And in fact, when we jump off the air here, I got to ask him a question just for personal gain, maybe that I don't want to put out there in the world just yet. But guys, that's going to do it for this week. If that Boom Studio news breaks next week, as you think it might, let's go ahead and jump in and do a special 15, 20-minute episode if you don't mind. Is that cool?
Yep, I'm with it.
All right, guys, look for that next week, probably. Any other information out there, make sure you're following us, CBCS, on all of the social media platforms. We're dropping articles all the time now, it feels like. I think I'm writing 2 or 3 a week. Of course, don't forget Jack. Jack puts out great information. Also, at aka_Mr. Bolo on Instagram. And is that the same on Twitter as well?
Yeah, everywhere else it's just aka Mr. Bolo, one word. So
aka Mr. Bolo. Awesome. Guys, thanks for hanging out with me. Jack, please hang out backstage for just for a moment. Everybody else, that's going to actually do it. If you're into Pokemon, go back to yesterday and watch my episode with New York Giants linebacker Blake Martinez. We talk a little bit of football. Everything else is Pokemon, and it's an amazing episode. I was surprised, to say the least. Go check that out. Everybody else, we will see you next Tuesday with a lot of information breaking around the National, the Industry Summit, and some things that are going to be happening at BGS at both shows. Don't miss that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Until then, good day. God bless.